February 26, 1959. The Soviet Union, Ural Mountains. A search helicopter circles a desolate mountain slope. Below, in the snow, rescue teams see something. A tent, partially collapsed, abandoned, in one of the most remote locations in the Soviet Union, hundreds of miles from the nearest city. No roads, no villages, just endless snow, mountains, and sub-zero cold. The search team approaches on skis. They've been looking for 9 hikers for 2 weeks. 10 experienced winter mountaineers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. They were supposed to return February 12th. They never came home. The tent is strange, not collapsed from snow or wind, cut open from the inside. Multiple slashes through the canvas, like someone or 9 someones were desperate to escape. Inside, all their supplies, food, equipment, clothing, 9 pairs of shoes. The shoes. Who abandons their shoes in the Ural Mountains in February, in minus 30 degrees Celsius weather? Leading away from the tent, prints in the snow, 8 or 9 sets, some barefoot, some in socks, one showing a single felt boot, walking, not running, downhill toward the tree line 1.5 kilometers away. Then the prints disappear under the snow. At the tree line, near a cedar tree, they find the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, both in their underwear, barefoot, frozen, hands burned trying to climb the tree. Broken branches 5 meters up show someone climbed it in desperation. Between the cedar and the tent, 3 more bodies. Igor Dyatlov, the expedition leader, Zina Komogorova, Rustam Slobodin, all positioned as if trying to return to the tent, all dead from hypothermia. 5 bodies, 4 still missing. It takes 2 more months of searching. May 4th, 1959, under 4 meters of snow in a ravine, they find the final 4. And this is where the mystery becomes a nightmare. Lyudmila Dubinina, massive chest fractures, ribs broken on both sides, missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. Semyon Zolotaryov, 5 broken ribs, internal bleeding. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, severe skull fracture. Alexander Kolovatov, found with the others, less severe injuries. The Soviet medical examiner, Boris Vozrojdeny, examines the bodies. His report states the force required to cause these injuries was equivalent to a high-speed car crash. But there are no external wounds, no bruising, no cuts, no signs of a fight. Tests detect radiation on some of their clothing, beta radiation, above normal levels. May 1959, the official Soviet investigation closes with a statement that would echo for 65 years. Death by unknown compelling force.
9 experienced hikers, dead on a mountain in circumstances that make no sense. The Soviet government classifies the case, closes the area for 3 years, and provides no real answers. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, named after Igor Dyatlov, the group's leader. And 65 years later, we still don't know what killed them. The Dyatlov Pass incident isn't a legend. It's not folklore or urban myth. It's a documented Soviet investigation with autopsy reports, photographs, and witness testimony from the search team. And the evidence doesn't make sense. Let's establish what we know for certain, what any explanation must account for. The tent wasn't damaged by external forces. It was deliberately slashed open by the people inside, multiple cuts, made with knives they carried, from the interior. This means sudden, desperate need to escape. But escape from what? No avalanche debris, no animal tracks, no signs of attack, no evidence of anything threatening outside the tent. 9 experienced winter mountaineers, collectively decades of winter hiking experience, abandoned a functional tent with all their supplies, warm clothing, and footwear. In negative 30 degrees Celsius weather, at night, on an exposed mountain slope. They knew this was death. These weren't amateurs. Igor Dyatlov had led multiple winter expeditions. Semyon Zolotaryov was a veteran of World War II. They understood survival. What could make them choose certain death over staying in the tent? The footprints show they walked, not ran, down the slope in an organized group. Methodical, controlled. Some prints show people walking close together, possibly helping each other. Not panic, not chaos. Purposeful evacuation. At the cedar tree, they built a fire. Someone climbed 5 meters up to break branches for fuel. They weren't giving up. The 3 who died between the cedar and tent were trying to return. They made it 300 to 600 meters before hypothermia took them. These are survival actions. But if they're trying to survive, why not go back to the tent immediately? Medical examiner Boris Mazrozhdeny's report is explicit. Lyudmila Dubanina, ribs 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right side, broken. Ribs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the left side, broken. Massive internal hemorrhaging, the kind of force you see in car crashes. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, depressed skull fracture, temporal bone crushed inward. Semyon Zolotaryov, ribs 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, broken. Hemothorax, blood in the chest cavity. It was impossible for these injuries to be caused by another human being. The force required was too great. But here's what makes it inexplicable. No external trauma, no bruising, no lacerations. The skin was intact. How do you fracture ribs without damaging the chest surface? How do you crush a skull without external wounds? Lyudmila Dubanina's tongue was missing. Her eyes, part of her facial tissue. Post-mortem scavenging by animals? Possible, but her body was found under 4 meters of snow in May. How did scavengers access her? Some researchers note the removal was too precise, too specific. Soviet tests found beta radiation on specific clothing items, higher than normal background levels, but not immediately lethal. Yuri Krivomeshchenko worked at the Mayak nuclear facility. Could his clothing have been contaminated before the trip? Or did they encounter something radioactive on the mountain? Multiple independent witnesses, including another expedition 50 kilometers south and a Soviet military unit, reported seeing orange spheres in the night sky over the northern Urals in late February 1959. Soviet military records confirm this. R-7 missile tests were being conducted in the region. Connection? Coincidence? Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin died trying to get back to the tent. Why leave, then try to return? If the tent was dangerous, why go back? If it was safe, why leave? The government closed the investigation in May 1959, classified the files, declared the area off-limits to hikers and expeditions for 3 years. For a hiking accident? Why the secrecy? These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented facts from official Soviet records, autopsy reports, and photographs taken by the search team. And no single theory explains all of them. January 2021, Switzerland. A team from the Federal Institute of Technology publishes a study in Communications, Earth and Environment. The title, Mechanisms of Slab Avalanche Release and Impact in the Dyatlov Pass Incident in 1959. Their claim, we've solved the Dyatlov mystery. It was an avalanche. Lead researchers Alexander Puzrin and Johann Gaum used computer modeling, snow mechanics analysis, and avalanche physics to propose a solution. The Dyatlov group pitched their tent on a slope, unusual for experienced hikers who typically camp on flat ground. To create a flat platform, they dug into the snow, cutting into the slope. This destabilization, combined with wind patterns and snow accumulation, created conditions for a rare slab avalanche, a delayed collapse where a layer of snow suddenly breaks free. 9 to 13 hours after pitching the tent while they were sleeping, a small slab avalanche hit the tent. Not a massive avalanche, a localized low-impact event, but enough force to injure the sleeping occupants. The Swiss team's computer simulation showed that a small snow slab hitting people lying horizontally could deliver car crash-level force to their torsos without leaving external marks. The injuries would be internal, exactly what the autopsy found.
Injured, disoriented, possibly thinking a larger avalanche was coming, they cut their way out of the tent and fled downhill to escape further collapse. Once at the tree line, realizing the avalanche danger had passed, but now fatally exposed to the cold, they tried to survive. Some attempted to return to the tent, but succumbed to hypothermia. The study was peer-reviewed, published in a respected journal, covered by international media. Dyatlov Pass mystery finally solved. But was it? Problem number 1. The 1959 investigators specifically searched for avalanche evidence. They found none. The tent was still partially standing. The footprints leading away were undisturbed. An avalanche, even a small one, would have obliterated these. Problem number 2, the timeline doesn't work. If the catastrophic injuries occurred at the tent from an avalanche impact, why were the victims with severe trauma found 75 meters from the cedar tree? They survived long enough to walk there, build a den, gather branches, and dress in clothing from those who died first. Problem number 3. Avalanche victims don't exhibit organized retreat behavior. The footprints show controlled, purposeful evacuation. Avalanche survivors would be injured, panicked, chaotic. Problem number 4. The wrong injury pattern. Avalanche trauma causes compression asphyxiation, external injuries, broken bones with external damage. The Dyatlov victims had massive internal trauma with intact skin. Problem number 5, it doesn't explain the radiation, the missing tongue, or the orange lights. Puzrin and Gaum acknowledged they couldn't account for all the anomalies. Their study focused specifically on the mechanism that could cause the injuries, not the complete sequence of events.
Avalanche theory explains some evidence, but it requires ignoring other evidence. It's a partial solution to a complete mystery. 2 other major theories compete for explanation. Both have compelling evidence. Both have fatal flaws. 2000. American researcher Donnie Eichar publishes Dead Mountain, proposing infrasound as the cause. Infrasound, sound below 20 hertz, below human hearing. We can't hear it, but we feel it. Frequencies around 18 to 19 hertz cause extreme anxiety, visual hallucinations, irrational panic, chest pressure, difficulty breathing. Ural Mountains topography could create Kármán vortex streets, wind patterns generating sustained low-frequency waves. Inside the tent, the hikers would experience overwhelming, sourceless dread. Unable to identify the threat, but feeling mortal terror, they cut out and fled. As distance from the infrasound source increased, rational thinking returned, but by then they were too far from shelter. Infrasound has been documented causing panic in controlled settings. Vic Tandy's 1998 laboratory experiment showed 19 Hz standing waves creating feelings of being watched, anxiety, visual apparitions. It doesn't explain the catastrophic physical injuries. Infrasound creates psychological effects, not broken ribs and crushed skulls. And it doesn't account for the radiation or missing tissues. The Cold War, 1959. The Soviet military was conducting extensive weapons testing in remote areas. Evidence number 1. Orange spheres witnessed by multiple parties that night. Soviet military documents confirm R-7 ICM tests in the region, the same rocket that launched Sputnik. Evidence number 2. Radiation on clothing consistent with proximity to radioactive materials or fallout.
Evidence number 3. Rapid classification of the case. Area closed for 3 years. Unknown compelling force. A deliberately vague official conclusion. The Dyatlov group witnessed or was caught in military testing. Possibilities: missile debris strike, parachute mine testing, thermobaric weapon experiment, chemical or biological agent testing. The secrecy, the lights, the radiation, the Soviet government's behavior suggests they knew more than they revealed. Problem number 1. The injury pattern doesn't match any 1959 weapon. Blast weapons cause burns and external damage. This was internal trauma with no external marks. Problem number 2. If the military accidentally killed hikers, why conduct an investigation? Why not disappear the bodies entirely? Problem number 3. The timeline is too long. Whatever happened at the tent occurred around 9 to 11 p.m. The ravine injuries happened hours later, not a single incident. Some researchers propose combinations. Infrasound drove them from the tent, plus secondary event caused injuries, plus military involvement explains classification and lights. But we're stacking speculation on speculation now. The Dyatlov Pass incident never died. For 65 years, it's been investigated, analyzed, theorized, and debated. February 2019, the Russian government announces they're reopening the investigation, 60 years after the deaths. Why? International pressure. Documentary films, books. The case has become famous worldwide. The Russian Prosecutor General's office agrees to examine 3 possibilities: avalanche, hurricane force winds, slab avalanche, specific type. July 2020, Russian authorities announced their conclusion: avalanche. They close the case again. The families of the victims reject this conclusion. Independent researchers reject it. Even some members of the investigation team privately expressed doubt. Too much evidence doesn't fit. 2021. The Dyatlov Foundation, run by researchers and family members, conducts independent research. They interview surviving search team members, examine original evidence, consult forensic experts. Their conclusion? Inconclusive. No single theory fits all the facts. The Dyatlov Pass incident has become one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in the world. Books? Dozens, including Donnie Icar's Dead Mountain and Keith McCloskey's exhaustive analysis. Documentaries? Multiple productions from Russia, America, UK, some sensational, some serious. Movies? 2013's Devil's Pass, fictionalized horror, various low-budget films. Tourism. The site has become a destination for extreme hikers. The route is now officially called the Dyatlov Pass. Memorial plaques mark where the tent stood and where the bodies were found. Members of the original 1959 search party have given interviews over the years. Consistent details. The tent was strange, deliberately cut from inside. The footprints showed organization, not panic. The injuries on the ravine victims were unlike anything they'd seen. There was a sense something was being hidden. For the families, it's not a mystery. It's 9 people who died. Sons, daughters, friends. They deserve answers. Yuri Yudin, the 10th hiker who turned back due to illness and survived, spent his life searching for answers. He died in 2013, never knowing what killed his friends. His final interview? We may never know, and that's the hardest part. So what killed the Dyatlov group? Most likely, a combination of natural events, possibly an avalanche or slab collapse, hypothermia, panic-driven decisions in the dark, falls in the ravine causing injuries, paradoxical undressing, terminal burrowing. The radiation? Krivonischenko's contaminated work clothing. The lights? Missile tests. The tongue? Post-mortem scavenging. The classification? Standard Soviet secrecy. But that requires explaining away why no avalanche debris was found, how internal injuries occurred without external trauma, why the tent was cut from inside if they were fleeing avalanche, the organized footprints, why they couldn't return to the tent, the precision of the missing soft tissues, the specific pattern of everything. Here's what's truly strange. We've mapped the entire Earth with satellites. We understand avalanche mechanics, hypothermia, forensic pathology. We've solved cases from 1,000 years ago using DNA and modern analysis. But 9 people died in 1959 in a well-documented incident, examined by Soviet investigators with photographs, autopsy reports, physical evidence, and we still can't definitively explain what happened. The search team members who found the bodies, now in their 80s and 90s, the few still alive, still say the same thing. Something was wrong. We knew it then, we know it now. 9 people, let's remember them. Igor Dyatlov, 23, expedition leader. Yuri Doroshenko, 21. Ludmila Dubinina, 20. Alexander Kolovatov, 24. Rustem Slobodin, 23. Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22. Yuri Krivonischenko, 23. Nikolai Thibaut Brignoles, 23. And Semyon Zolotaryov, 37. The last diary entry was written February 1st, 1959. They were setting up camp on the mountain slope. They were in good spirits, planning to summit the next day. That night, something happened. Something that made them cut their way out of a tent in minus 30 degrees Celsius weather. Something that sent them walking into certain death. Something that left injuries a medical examiner compared to a car crash.
Was it natural? Almost certainly. Was it explainable? Probably. Will we ever know for certain? Maybe not. Stand in the Ural Mountains today. Visit Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain. Look at the memorial where the tent stood. The wind howls the same way it did 65 years ago. The snow falls the same way. The isolation is absolute. And somewhere on that mountain, in the snow and the silence, is the answer to what happened that night. 9 experienced hikers cut their way out of a tent, walked to their deaths. Injuries that defy explanation, radiation, missing tongue, classified investigation. Death by unknown compelling force. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, February 1st to 2nd, 1959. 9 deaths, 65 years of investigation, no definitive answer. And in the Ural Mountains, the wind still howls over Dead Mountain, and the mystery remains.